Hey everybody, Mr. The Fanboy here. This is a video I've been meaning to do for a long time. This is my salute of Bellator MMA and Glory Kickboxing. Back in September, I think it was September 19th. Scott Croker, president of Bellator, did a Bellator Dynamite show, which for those of you who don't know, back in Japan when the when the mega MMA powerhouse Pride Fighting Championships was around, Pride FC was around, they did several shows. They did several shows co-promoting with the K1 kickboxing organization called Dynamite, which featured MMA fighters and K1 kickboxers on one show. Scott Croker recently brought that here to America with the Bellator Dynamite One show, which he announced back in July. Back in July, which he announced back in July at the Chemo Slice King Shamrock fight, live on Spike TV, and this giant fight card featured, I think it was three Glory kickboxing fights and an a mini MMA heavyweight tournament, Grand Prix heavyweight tournament to decide the number one contender to Tito Ortiz Tito Ortiz light heavyweight championship, and a and of course the main event of course featured Liam McGeary versus Tito Ortiz for Tito Ortiz's heavyweight championship, with the winner of the Grand Prix, which featured King Mo, Phil Davis, Emmanuel Newton. I keep forgetting the other guy in a four-way Grand Prix tournament to decide who fights the winner of the Tito Ortiz um McGeary fight. I'll review. I may review the show sometime in the future. Right now, this is just my salute of Bellator and Glory. Of course, I'm gonna start off with Bellator. Of course, I first saw Bellator on Spike TV back in back in late 2000 back in late 2013 back in late 2013 when they were planning on bringing Tito Ortiz and King Mo and Rampage to TNA wrestling. This is when TNA was co-promoting with Bellator. So then I decided to take a look at their Bellator tournaments. I didn't have any favorite fighters. Then, but the tournaments and the fights were awesome. Were awesome, and then coming to then coming to then I took a break from took a break from MMA because I was more into what TNA was doing at the time. Then I came back to watching I came back to watching Bellator when Bobby Lashley when Bobby Lashley when Bobby Lashley and Chet Congo, who I enjoyed in the UFC, appeared on their roster. This is when I came back to watching Bellator full time, and every Bellator show I've watched, I've never been disappointed. There have been fights I didn't like, or fights that I've probably been a little disappointed by, but when it comes to overall shows and overall entertainment value, I have never been disappointed with a Bellator show. All of their fights, especially in the lighter divisions, which in my opinion is where most of the talent is. All of their fights are fast-paced, technical, and exciting. And Bellator, unlike the UFC, which in my opinion the UFC, they're supposed to be a martial arts organization. They're closer to WWE, boxing, and NFL. Whereas Bellator, of course, they have some things that are similar to NFL and professional wrestling, but it's presented as epic martial arts show, kind of like how Pride FC was, in Japan, and Bellator. I like how they succeeded where the last two promotions that tried to provide an alternate to the UFC, that was Elite XC and of course Strikeforce. The two problems I had with these promotions, besides Elite XC fixing fights, that was one problem I had with them. But the problem I had with Elite XC, which was an awesome promotion, great production values and great fighters, was not only were they focusing way too much on Kimbo Slice, but they never got on TV. They were always featured on pay-per-view. They never established a television product. Same with Strikeforce. They got on CBS. At the time, I didn't have CBS. I had the channel now, CBS Sports. I have the channel now, but I didn't have it at the time when I didn't have I didn't have Strikeforce at the time. I didn't have Strikeforce. I didn't have CBS at the time, so I never got to see him. And I think that's one of the reasons that caused them to get bought out by the UFC, caused him to get bought by UFC. Scott Croker, who was I think he was a president of that. With Bellator, they improved this by instead of going to pay-per-view, establish a television product first. Establish a television product. Have it live on have the shows live on Spike TV, and they've so far been successful doing this. The Ken Shamrock Kimbo Slice fight drew lots of mainstream attention. And got a lot of people to watch Bellator. Another thing I like about Bellator is they treat the fighters well. Well. All the fighters seem to be happy in Bellator. They can't pay what UFC can, but they treat the fighters well. And another thing I like, they allow the fighters to work for other organizations. Bellator fighters are allowed to fight in Glory Kickboxing, and Bobby Lashley is allowed to appear in TNA and Bellator at the same time. Dana White forbid that. So yeah. Then of course the stars. Of course you got the guys who draw all the money. You got the top stars: Phil Davis, King Mo, Emmanuel Newton, Chet Congo, Kimbo Slice, and Ken Shamrock. Then you got the young guys like the Pitbull brothers, Patricky and Patricio Fier. The Pitbull brothers, Alexander Strelnico, who's currently suspended for performance enhancement drugs. Assad, I keep forgetting his first name, but Assad, he recently fought Patricio and another one, Daniel Strauss, Michael Chandler, who had a fight of the year candidate with Eddie Alvarez, who's now in UFC. I also think Renato Sabarol is with Bellator, but I don't think he's fought in a while. Renato Sabarol, former UFC veteran Renato Sabarol, is in Bellator. And Fickle, who I like to call the caveman guy, who has the over-the-top entrance. He's another awesome fighter. They have so like I said, they have like lots of awesome fighters and lots of awesome talent, especially in the lighter divisions. Then you got the heavyweights. You got Bobby Lashley. I mentioned Bobby Lashley. I mentioned King Mo, Phil Davis, Chet Congo, Bobby Lashley, who got me watching the product full time. Bobby Lashley, and of course Kimbo Slice and Ken Shamrock. Another thing I like was that in UFC, when you lose 3 fights or lose a fight badly as Ken Shamrock has been losing, you're cut, you're gone. Or Dana White, yeah, you're cut, you're gone. Or Dana White will convince you to stop fighting, like we did with Chuck Liddell. In Bellator, when a fighter loses, they give them the opportunity for another fight because they recognize their drawing power. They recognize the fighter's drawing power. So they give them another. They make it up to them whether they want to retire or not. And I like that. And I like that. I like that, and Bellator just feels more epic, having all the MMA veterans like Frank Shamrock, Randy Couture, Kazushi Sakuraba, and Fedor and Malenko. It feels more epic having all these MMA legends at Bellator. Bellator even had Linda Hart, the famous Pride FC announcer who now does announcements for the ONE FC organization in Japan. Now another awesome MMA organization. She does the over the top interest. She did it for Bellator Dynamite. Awesome production values. I love the cage with the butt I love the white cage with the Butt Light symbol on the bottom. The first design of the cage with the gray gold padding was cool too, but I like this one the best. The black cage with the white padding and the Butt Light, the large arena similar to Pride and the Affliction and Strike Force of the past. The large arena, and I love the over the top entrances, and announcers. So yeah, this right here was my salute of Bellator. Now let's get to Glory Kickboxing. I first saw Glory Kickboxing in 2013, and I instantly became a fan of Tyrone Sprong, who I saw in K1. Tyrone Sprong, who is a good fighter and has devastating knockout power, devastating punching power, and of course Rico Van Hooven, who has to probably be the most technical, the greatest kickboxing technician I've seen since Ernesto Hus from the 90s in K1, from the 90s and 2000s in K1, who has, for a big man who are known for power, this guy has awesome techniques with awesome jabs and awesome sweeps. These two, who I consider the top stars and the faces of Glory, these two immediately made me a fan. I also like Anderson Silva, not the MMA fighter. There's a kickboxer named Anderson Silva. Eero Zimmerman, who I consider the tweener villain of Glory, because he talks the most trash and is the most aggressive out of all the fighters. Is the fighter there who's actually legitimately there to hurt people. Then of course there's MMA fighter Pat Barry, who was back. Crow Cop was recently here, but he recently returned to MMA. Then of course you got Nick Holstein in the lightweight division. You got several awesome fighters in the lightweight division. I mostly pay attention to the heavyweight division, but you got several awesome fighters in the lightweight division. You got a couple of awesome female fighters who were featured at Bellator Dynamite, and just an awesome production values. They have a white. Their current production design is a white ring with white ropes and a large professional wrestling like organization, which looks like a video game instead of a major sporting league. It's an epic old school martial arts, over the top martial arts movie like show, and I think that's very cool versus the stereotypical boxing arena you see, the casino like boxing arena you see now in UFC and boxing. Glory, awesome fight organization. Then it feels more epic having not only having past K1 kickboxers featured on the show. It feels more epic. They had Steven Quattros, one of the announcers from Pride FC. They had him announcing. George St. Pierre has done stuff here. Even Joe Rogan has appeared here. Floyd Mayweather Jr. has appeared in the crowd several times, and even Goldberg is doing some stuff with Bellator, even though I highly doubt he get in the ring, which I think would be really cool. Him and Goldberg fighting in the ring. But Bill Goldberg doing some stuff. So like I said, combat sports for Spike TV is awesome. You got Bellator, you got Bellator, you got Glory, you got Premier Boxing Champions, a new boxing show. And of course, professional wrestling is supposed to return to Spike TV. I read that in an article on Facebook. Well, I didn't click on the article and read it, but I saw an article on Facebook about professional wrestling returning back. So yeah, Spike TV is good. But like I said, this was a salute of Bellator and Glory. I like what both of these companies are doing for not only MMA and kickboxing, but combat sports in general. After my opinion, UFC kind of ruined it, and it's good to see Glory bringing kickboxing back, because K1, which was never really that big to begin with, is a shell of its former self. I've seen some stuff on Facebook. It's still a pretty good product, but it's nowhere compared to what it was in the 90s and 2000s, man. 90s and 2000s. I'm glad to hear they're bringing kickboxing back. The only problem I have with Glory. Only problem I have with Glory and Bellator, we'll start with Bellator, is Bellator, instead of being different and unique, they try to replicate and be like the UFC. They even have their own Joe Rogan and Mike Goldberg, and they even have their own Fertitta brothers. And of course, one thing I hate about Bellator, you can't, of course, just like UFC, everyone wears tights and shorts. You can't wear pants, shirts, singlets, tights, anything like that. Long tights, anything like that. You can't wear no karate shirts anymore, but at least they don't have Reebok deals. So it's still some individuality when it comes to attire. I hate that's the only things I hate about Bellator. Same with Glory. Glory has a similar problem like that. The only other thing I don't like about Glory is that they only feature the K1 full contact kickboxing rules. There's no Muay Thai. You know, I can do without Muay Thai. There's no Muay Thai, and there's no Sanshou, Sonata kickboxing, Chinese kickboxing, Kung Fu. There's none of that kickboxing with wrestling throws and stuff, or any shoot boxing, which is kickboxing with throws and joint locks like MMA. So that's the only problem I have with Glory. But like I said, awesome promotions, awesome presidents, awesome talents, really epic shows, and both of these promotions, I hope they go far and do very well. All right, Mr. The Fanboy out.